Welcome to Lotus Health Education and Wellness Empowerment through Health Enlightenment. We're continuing on another one of our videos in our series on probiotics by looking at some of the things that patients often ask pharmacists as well as other healthcare providers about the use of probiotic products. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do just to make sure that we stay as safe and healthy as we can if you're looking to implement the use of probiotics in your diet to start off with, or if you're looking to increase your use of probiotics and prebiotics. So let's take a look at what some of the topics are. Depending on the reason why you want to use probiotics will help you determine what particular probiotic strain or strains you want to try and incorporate into your diet. It's important to remember that for most people, you don't necessarily have to take probiotics if you're eating a diet that's balanced with certain types of fermented foods, you're not taking chronically certain types of medications that are known to create an imbalance in your GI tract, specifically things like antibiotics or certain other types of anti-infectives. And if you don't belong to a population of patients that have routine GI issues that might in some way affect your probiotic constitution in your GI tract, most people don't necessarily need to take probiotics on a routine basis in order to remain healthy. However, if you do fall into any of those categories, or if you're interested in using probiotics, again, under the supervision of a healthcare professional or a team of individuals that knows a bit about your health, there are certain probiotic strains that have been researched or are currently being researched for benefits for specific indications. It's important to keep in mind when you're selecting a probiotic, you want to think about what your specific reason is or what the reasons you've discussed with your healthcare provider are for your use. So for instance, if you're going to your doctor and know that you're going to be receiving a prescription for an antibiotic and they recommend that you take a probiotic to protect you from any issues from the antibiotic use, it's important to know if they have a specific recommendation in terms of the probiotic they'd like you to use, or if there's research out there, which there is, that supports certain strains of probiotics that would be beneficial for antibiotic use. In one of our previous videos, which I've linked before to other video content, and we'll put the link down here in the description to this video, we talked a little bit about some of the reasons and had a website, which I will again put in the description here below, that talked a little bit about some of the topics that have already been researched or that have studies going on that show specific strains of probiotics and what they're beneficial for. I will once again put the link here in the description, like I say. And so if you're interested in incorporating or increasing the amount of probiotic that you're taking or prebiotics, there will be some helpful information as far as whether it's things like lactobacillus, bifidobacter, or certain other strains of probiotic species that are beneficial for the particular indication that you're looking for. One of the questions that I would often get from patients when I worked in retail pharmacy and still periodically get now with being in and out of clinic is how much probiotics to use. It's really important to keep in mind, probiotics are going to have an effect on your GI tract. Overall, they can be extremely helpful, and particularly if you had some of those conditions that we just got done talking about a while ago, a little earlier in this video. The thing of it is for you to keep in mind, if you're going to be bringing on board new probiotic species, either through things like yogurt or probiotic shots like these or some of our probiotic foods that you see here, you want to make sure that you have a specific plan in place as to how you're going to increase, or what we refer to from a more technical standpoint as titrating the use of that product. We've shown in some of our previous videos things like the freeze-dried varieties that you can go and pick up that sit on the shelf, as well as some of these colder foods or items that have probiotics and prebiotics in them. You want to make sure that you don't overdo it. A lot of us have a tendency when we're starting something that's new and we want to make sure that we're being healthy or healthier, that we go all in and try to overdo it essentially. And probiotics are one of those areas that you want to make sure that you are very careful about. So anytime I get questions from patients in terms of how much of a probiotic they should use, I always go with something that most of us in pharmacy, and I'm sure if you're a healthcare professional in another area watching this, you'll know this as well. Start low. You want to try to take the minimal amount of something, whether it's a capsule, in which case maybe you just want to start with one for a little bit. If it's going to be consuming things like shots or consuming yogurts or other types of products, try to go with just one serving or one sampling of the product. Don't try to drink 3 or 4 of these guys, for instance, all at once, because one of the things that we know definitively with probiotic use or products that contain probiotics is that the more of them that you put into your system, and then on top of that, if you layer on that you're consuming prebiotic products like fibrous items, for instance, in your diet, you're going to induce things like bloating and other types of GI issues that are going to cause a lot of discomfort with your system. And with many patients in their minds, that creates a problem now because they take the probiotics thinking that they're going to be healthy, but then they cause symptoms to themselves. And it's not that these are not beneficial, they have a lot of health benefits. You just want to make sure that you start low. And so always when you're going to be introducing anything in general, but in this particular case, probiotics, you want to start with the smallest amount possible and then gradually increase. And again, just like we got done talking about with your why as to what your reason is of why you're taking the probiotic, think about that and talk to your healthcare team in terms of what's going to be good for you. Maybe you just need one product. Maybe you need to incorporate a little sampling or assortment of a few different probiotic sources. It really depends on the indication or the reason why you're taking it and what specific combination of products you're going to end up using. But always keep in mind, you want to make sure that you start with the minimal amount and listen to your body as it responds, and you change anything that you're taking, that you don't end up giving yourself other GI conditions to worry about. But you also want to make sure you get the benefits of the probiotic. So, in further preparation for some of our other videos that I've been working on, including the one that you're watching right now, I did a little bit more research on some of these foods and things that can be incorporated into your diet in order to be able to get probiotic and prebiotic benefits. And you'll remember in one of our previous videos where we talked about some healthy recipes that you can include, we talked about our friend, the sourdough bread. So, sourdough starter, the dough in and of itself, before you bake it, does in fact have probiotics. However, and this is something that I have to concede openly, once you bake it, just in and of itself, not even toasting like I described in that previous video, but just the baking and making of the bread in and of itself reduces and basically diminishes the probiotic benefits of the dough. So while the dough in its raw form is probiotic in nature, the finished product that we are consuming doesn't really have as much probiotic benefit as some of these items that you see here, which obviously I know you can't feel them here through the video, but I can assure you they're cold. And this is why you'll find that with most sources of probiotics, they tend to be cold or uncooked products. So I have to say that sourdough bread is one of those areas of contention. You will see it when you look at certain charts or other sources of information when you Google stuff, which, you know, us medical professionals love that. But honestly, all jokes aside, you will see sourdough bread included as a probiotic item, but it's important for me to point out that the probiotic benefit of it really isn't there compared to some of these items because it's baked. That doesn't mean that sourdough bread has no GI benefits at all. It is said to have some prebiotic benefits, particularly depending on what grains or anything like that you may choose to include in your sourdough bread. It does tend to have a lower level of gluten and is a pretty good source of protein, and it tends to be better tolerated than certain other types of bread by people that have certain GI conditions like IBS. So there are some GI benefits to it. It may also provide some benefits if you take it with other products like this as a prebiotic, but a correction to our previous videos where it being truly a probiotic containing food in its raw state, which the majority of us don't eat it like that, it does have probiotic benefit with the starter, the dough in and of itself, but as far as the finished product, not as much probiotic benefit. So the answer is yes, as you ask. Are there foods that have some sort of probiotic benefit when they're cooked? There are. It depends on the temperature to which you cook them. So things like miso, for instance, you can make miso soup. The paste in and of itself has probiotic benefits, and as long as you don't boil the water and try to keep the water to a particular temperature, which again in the description we'll put some ranges that have been identified to be fairly reasonable as far as when to boil the water and then shut it off and kind of let it cool too. You want to make sure that you keep it within that range if you intend to consume miso soup for any sort of digestive or specifically probiotic benefit. We also have our friend here, which I have not forgotten. For those of you thinking from watching any previous videos, didn't you say you were going to cook this? I am going to cook it. And that brings us to another recommendation with this. Tempeh is one of those products that you can, again, to a certain temperature, cook and still get some of the probiotic benefits. And in fact, it's actually recommended. Unlike some of these guys here that we can consume straight out of the package like this, tempeh is a fermented product, and depending on whether you buy the pasteurized versus unpasteurized version of it, it's very similar to other products where the pasteurized version provides you a level of protection from any bacteria or any other harmful substances that would be on the food. If you can't tell whether or not the product is a pasteurized tempeh, you can steam it before you do any further preparation to it. And this tends to be recommended as far as handling tempeh. If you're going to be cooking it at home, that you make sure that you do that before you consume it, just to ensure that you get the probiotic benefits that come from it being fermented, but a natural component of fermenting things. And this brings up another point that many of us may get recipes, or it's a tradition in our family, depending on our culture, that certain things that we consume are fermented. You want to make sure that you follow certain good housekeeping techniques and be clean as far as handling of the food in and of itself, the container that it's going to go into, if you're going to look to do fermented products yourself from home. If you're going to be purchasing pre-done fermented products, you just want to make sure that you take a look at the packaging to see whether or not the ingredients are consistent with any health concerns that you may have, or if there's special handling, like in the case of tempeh here, that you need to make sure that you engage in when you're preparing the food items. For the most part, products that are mass produced like this and available here in the United States generally have to go through some level of review, but not necessarily always, depending on where you're getting them. And ultimately, it's how you're going to be handling them before they enter your system. So these are some things that you want to make sure that you keep in mind as you are handling any of these products and looking to incorporate them into your diet. So these are just some quick tips as you're looking to try and make sure that you're living the healthiest possible life that you can. And if you're interested in probiotics, that you're ensuring that you're following good practices to minimize any additional concerns and get the best benefit and the most benefit that you can out of products like these. We're going to be making some additional videos here, so please remember to like and subscribe if you're enjoying our content, and look out for more on this topic as well as certain other topics that we're going to be covering soon. And I'd love to hear from you, so if you have any comments, please remember to put them below here in the comments section, whether it's questions or recommendations for other topics that we can cover. It's always great to hear from you, and we'd love to be able to make more videos so that you can make sure that you get empowerment through health enlightenment here at Lotus Health Education and Wellness. Take care.